Our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. In that gospel, I noticed that it said two things. It said, first of all, that Jesus was going along, and with Jesus was what? A large crowd, right? His disciples and a large crowd. And then it's talking about the funeral procession that's coming out of the village of Nain. And it says, with the widow was a large crowd. So what you have in that gospel lesson is two processions meeting each other. You have a death procession coming out of the village, and you have Jesus leading a procession of life. And when the two intersect, Jesus wins, and the dead are raised. And it becomes one great big procession of life. Such is Jesus' desire, to redeem every procession of death, every deathly procession in this world, to redeem it and make it part of his procession of life. I got to thinking about, in our own time, because we're a pretty informal society, but we still do processions, don't we? We still do funeral processions. You still see the lines of cars with headlights going down the road to the cemetery. We do processions at graduation times. We do processions when a sports team wins a championship and they have a parade. Or at festivals. They had a parade at the Old West End Festival last weekend. It was a procession of a sort. And our processions, too, kind of indicate life or death. It seems to me that at every moment of our lives, we are in a procession, whether we realize it or not. We are either joining a procession of life or we are in a procession of death. In other words, the people, places, and things that we are processing toward in our lives will either take us to life or they will take us to death. So, the procession that Jesus invites us to, however, is his procession of life. Following Jesus leads us to do the things that lead to life. And the things that lead to life, it seems to me, will show up. If we are following Jesus, they will begin to show up in our lives. So, for instance, if you need to go to a 12-step program, that is a procession towards life when you attach yourself to something like that. Or you need counseling, that is a procession towards life when you do something to improve yourself, to make yourself more whole, more real, more present in the world. Or it may have to do with you have a mental health diagnosis, depression, or something else. And again, when we do the things that we need to do to take care of ourselves under those conditions, we have joined the procession of life. The procession of getting better, of more life, not less life. Diet and exercise. But you see what I mean when I say about we're either in one procession or the other? Because I'm not always in the procession of life. I mean, through my baptism, I've been baptized into Jesus' procession. But there's a lot of times I'll step out and head in the wrong direction. But the good news is Jesus is always ready to redeem that too and bring it back. I think if I'm in the procession of life, it's going to show up in my life and that I'm going to be here, even if I'm not paid to be here. I'm going to be here every Sunday. Because here is where I meet Jesus. In the Word about Jesus, in the Gospel lesson, where you hear, here's what Jesus here's where I meet Jesus and actually hold Jesus in the sacrament, as he becomes a part of me, as I receive that sacrament in some mysterious way that I have no idea how I understand it, but except that he said, this is my body and this is my blood. And so I take him at his word that somehow, in the mystery of the sacrament, he is coming to me. He is there. If we are in a procession of death, we will be headed toward none of those things. The procession of life, I think, is one where it brings us to a more thoughtful life, a life where we are more aware of who we are, of what's making us anxious, of what is making us tick, of what's making us do the things we do. We are more aware of that, and then, as we realize that, we take it to Jesus. What's the thing that's making me anxious? Oh, okay, now I am aware of this. Now I must take this to Jesus. He's the one who can heal me of it. What's the thing that's making me resentful? Oh, now I understand. But again, I will take it to God in Jesus, where he is the one who can heal it. So that we are in the procession of life, our presence becomes like Jesus' presence, a life-giving presence, to the point where we even can love and forgive enemies, which is one of the biggest challenges, isn't it? Identify those people whom you resent. Identify those people who make you angry, who even invite you to hate them. And then know that Jesus is the one who said, pray for your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. Love your enemies. And know that you have begun to find the thing, that praying for that person, that unlocks the resentment that binds you. So being in the procession of life, I think, is coming to a moment-by-moment awareness that we need to be doing an inventory of what's going on with us, almost momentarily. Sometimes we fall out of that, get into automatic behaviors, but as we follow Jesus, I think we become more aware. So that moment by moment we can take that inventory to see what's going on with me, what's going on with my neighbor, what's going on with my relationship with God. Jesus invites us to join his procession toward life. His Palm Sunday procession, victory procession, where he rode in humbly as a king, but was acclaimed king nonetheless. His Palm Sunday procession led to another procession, a procession out to a hill with a cross on it, where he was crucified. But even there, with his procession of life, he met his own death. Death died, and resurrection came. So we follow this Jesus in what's called a cruciform existence. Cruciform means in the shape of a cross. We follow Jesus in a cruciform existence, knowing that sometimes something about us has to die so that something new can rise and bring us more abundant life. Knowing that there are things we will leave behind for the sake of striving towards something richer, fuller, more meaningful, something that sets us free from resentments and angers and bitterness and wrath. We follow in the procession toward Jesus, who always has something to teach us.